Twin Cities area is made possible in part by grants from Cardiac Pacemakers Incorporated, Minnesota Mutual Life Insurance Company, Litton Microwave Cooking Products, and the Ellerby Companies.
KTCA TV, St. Paul, Minneapolis, Channel 2.
Night Times Thursday magazine is made possible by a grant from the Pillsbury Company Foundation on behalf of Totino's. Live from the Twin Cities, this is Night Times Magazine with Gary Gilson.
Good evening. I'd like to start tonight by telling you about an estimate, a theory, and another estimate. The first estimate is that in the average American home, the television set is on almost 6.5 hours a day. The theory, used by many network program planners, is that the set is tuned to the least objectionable program. And the other estimate is that the number of people watching primetime network television programs has been dropping. Estimates and theories aside, there is one overriding fact about commercial television: money. On tonight's show, we look at what the money machine is offering us in its new season. We meet the TV critics for the evening papers here in the Twin Cities, who will size up what they've seen so far and tell us how programs get on the air and either stay there or vanish. And we explore the world of the Twin Cities cab driver, a world that is being buffeted especially hard in the current money crunch. Now our first story. One of the great crapshoots in the country is now in progress. It's TV ratings time, and all the money that has gone into developing new programs, all the money that is to be made on those that succeed, is riding on how many people look at what is on the tube. Let's start our exploration of the new season with some snippets of what we are being asked to watch.
Thursday, Different Stroke starts the new season on a different night.
Gotcha!
And raise the roof with laughter on Gimme a Break.
You'll love it.
Tomorrow, firefighters battling the odds to keep the innocent alive. Lorne Green, Adam Rich, the premiere of Code Red.
Only one day left till the season premiere of Hill Street Blues on NBC.
Some people have just taken hostages on a floor at the Federal Annex.
Oh, God. That's bad news. Go get him, girls.
What do you want?
I want you to rub peanut butter all over me. I don't want you to miss a spot.
You, young actor.
Me?
Yeah. You married?
No, sir.
But you do like girls.
Doesn't everybody?
Just how far into the pregnancy is this girl?
About 8 years.
He must be huge.
Well, you went to college.
Yeah, but only for 2 years. And I took liberal arts. All that qualifies you to do is appreciate public television.
Oh, David and I love public television. Sometimes we think Carl Sagan is the only person who talks at our level.
This is the plaintiff, Margaret Cahill, and her poodle, Tony. She says Tony was used as a stud, and neither she nor Tony got anything in return. This is the defendant, Ken Buser, and his dog, Tiffany. He says he did all he could to pay off the plaintiff. He stands accused of not paying his stud fees.
How about that, ladies and gentlemen?
It's a boar! It's a man!
John Carmen of the Minneapolis Star, Rick Shefchik of the St. Paul Dispatch. What is it going to take to entertain Americans on television this year?
Well, if you mean what we've just seen, I think probably that's going to entertain Americans on television this year. But you have to remember a couple things. One is that they don't have a lot of choice if they're going to watch television at all. That's what they're going to watch. And secondly, they may not particularly like being entertained by that sort of stuff. It's, you know, it's a matter of choice, and there isn't a great deal of choice.
Rick?
Well, you said at the top of the show that the people are now watching what is least objectionable to them on television, and I think that's probably a pretty good definition of what television entertainment has come down to. just last night I ended up watching The Greatest American Hero because I scanned everything else that was on the tube, and that seemed the least objectionable, and for some reason or other I just felt like having the television on. And
what was the reason?
I guess it's because I had nothing real big going at home, no book that I was working on, no project that I was into, and I thought as a TV critic I ought to...
We've got the best excuse in the world. They pay us to watch it. We're supposed to be watching that.
I should familiarize myself with this stuff.
Well, do you guys ever feel like you want to escape from the tube? I mean, you do have to watch an awful lot of it.
Actually, I don't think I watch more of it than the average American watches in hours. You know, I don't think it comes out to more than 2, maybe 3 hours a day.
What's the total now? 6 hours? Is that what? Yeah, I hope I don't watch that much. I don't think that's good for you.
When you write your critiques of television programs, who are you writing for?
I'm writing for the average viewer, I think. The person hopefully, I'm putting myself in the position of just somebody who is home from work, sitting home at night, what's good on? And I like to be able to tell the reader, well, this is probably pretty good, or this is probably pretty bad, and just kind of help them make a decision a little bit easier.
John?
I'm writing for the average viewer, but I think I am also cognizant that there may be a second audience there, and that's people who are in the industry. And I like to tell them things that they may not know.
John, you offer people best bets for evening's viewing. Why did you one evening select Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island?
I think, well, I think that particular one we offered is sort of an academic exercise.
Of historical value, perhaps?
Oh, yes, of historical value. Well, there was a little story that went with it, too. That was a show that was on NBC. The story, as I heard it, is that Brandon Tartikoff, the president of NBC Entertainment, ordered somebody in his office one day and, as a joke, told him to produce a script for a Return to Gilligan's Island show that was to feature the Harlem Globetrotters and the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders. And whoever he was giving this order to never smiled, but came back a few days later with a script. Somehow, I don't know what happened to the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders in the meantime, they didn't make it.
I have a friend...
So, I was saying it, NBC puts its best jokes on the air.
I have a friend who lives in Hollywood and writes screenplays, and wrote one called Thank God It's Friday. It was made into a picture, and as a result of that was offered a chance to write a movie for television, and he wanted to make the money and do it, and he said, what do you want me to write about? And the NBC executive said, anything you want, as long as it ends with a skateboard race. And that's the way life is out there.
Well, I think that's the way most of television is, really. You'll find a lot of things happening on television that don't really have a lot to do with the story or the characters, but are just there because some network executive seems to think that this is what people want to see on television, or they're interested in, or they've been reading about, so they want to see more of it. But it doesn't really apply to real people and what they really do and think.
That reminds me of an old story about when I don't remember what network it is, when they were first putting sports on, excuse me, on television on Sunday afternoon. They were looking for sponsors. They went to old man Firestone and talked to him about buying time on Sundays. And his argument was that nobody watched television on Sunday because everybody was out playing polo.
Do you ever have the feeling that everybody's a critic or everybody wants to be a critic?
Well, I think everybody is, to the extent that they make judgments. But as to whether or not they really want to be a critic, I'm not sure if a lot of people ever really put themselves in that particular position of wanting to enforce their feelings of good or bad on others. I think people are critical up to the point of what they see on television for themselves. If they don't like it, they don't want to have to look at it again. But whether it comes to wanting to express opinion in the newspaper or on television as that type of a critic, I'm not sure if a lot of people really think in those terms.
Give me a little chance to be a critic now,
Sure.
Okay? Why do you, when you write a preview, tell the whole story sometimes?
I only do it if I think that the ending has already been given away sufficiently that it's no big secret anymore, or else if there's a very strong point that I want to make about that show or that type of show, and I think that there's no other way that I can do it. Otherwise, I try not to give the ending away.
Okay.
I do it sometimes to discourage people from watching a show.
Well, give us a couple of examples.
Oh, there have been a few NBC movies lately. I don't remember if I divulged the ending in Splendor in the Grass, but that may have been one of them. It seems like there was something else, and these television movies sort of fade one into the other.
Do you feel like the catcher in the rye trying to save the public from falling off the cliff?
No, I mean, a lot of people are going to read that and maybe read the ending or whatever else and still watch it. Actually, there isn't a great secret about the ending of something like Splinter in the Grass anyway.
What was on television last year that's not on this year?
What, in program forms?
Thematic material.
Sexual titillation.
Well, it's not been expunged. I saw Three's Company the other night. I didn't know what to do either. I just needed to do something different from what had happened all day long, and for the first time ever, I saw Three's Company.
But if you watched less established programs, you would see a great difference this year as opposed to last year. One example is a show that was on last year called Living It Up, which is now called Making a Living. There's a character in that show played by Ann Jillian. Her name is Cassie in the show. Last year, she was wearing a very brief costume, works as a waitress in a restaurant. This year, it's a long gown, and she is no longer the promiscuous character that she was a year ago. So look at something like that, and you also look at new series that are being introduced this year, and there is a tremendous difference.
Some of these producers reportedly are nervous about having sexually titillating material on because they're afraid of the moral majority or whatever. But others are going ahead with abandon. How do you reconcile those two things?
Well, that's what really irritates me the most about what's happening on television. If there's less of the bouncy, jiggly type TV shows, it's not because somebody decided it was bad quality stuff or that it was just stupid. It's because somebody was afraid. It has very little to do with quality judgments about the program. And if I really felt that somebody in Los Angeles had sat down and looked at what had been happening for the last 4 or 5 years and said, there's just too much of this, mindless, juvenile, sniggering type of sexual innuendo. It's not good for our viewers. It really isn't very funny. It isn't very interesting. We're going to take that off. I'd feel a lot better about television, but it's disappearing for other reasons. I think that the moral majority has had an effect.
What's the real story, John, behind the cleaning up of Tony Randall's fictional homosexuality?
Well, first I'd like to say something about, you said the producers. I think we shouldn't be talking about the producers so much as the networks. All the producers are doing is making and selling product to a network, and they're going to make and sell what the network will buy. This year the network is not buying sex, and they're not buying it because they're afraid of the moral majority.
Now what about Love, Sydney?
Love, Sydney is a Tony Randall series on NBC. The series follows a very fine movie called Sydney Shore, in which the central character was a middle-aged man who lives by himself, is through 5 or 6 subtle references in the movie, we know that the character is gay. When the series was made, or when it was made into a series, all of those references supposedly were to disappear, and the character was to be neutered, because according to the NBC executives last June, when this was a big issue, this was a family show. It was going to be on at, 8:30 at night. Children were going to be watching and should not be exposed to a gay character. I think what's happened since, I haven't seen the series yet this year, but I think what's happened since is that some of the very subtle references to his homosexuality have been left in the show. Is that right?
There were a couple in the first episode. Then again, last night, there were none at all. So it may be on a show-to-show basis, but he's not as strongly gay, and he wasn't strongly gay to begin with, but it does seem to be fading out a little bit.
I don't watch very many of these series, sitcoms or dramatic series, but I see them occasionally, and what strikes me about them is that the level of acting, writing, and direction is like the 6th grade pageant in school. This is not to suggest that people should see another George Scott series called East Side, West Side, or whatever, or be uplifted or plunged into the urban crisis. But why can't just plain old entertainment be done better?
Well, I think several reasons for that, and one is that there is a genuine shortage of particularly writing talent in Hollywood for television. Another is that I don't think there's a big incentive to make shows the best that they can be made, because if a show is pulling a pretty good rating the way it's being made now, why spend extra money or whatever else it takes to make it better? It seems pointless in a sense. And I think a third answer is that television, you have to have a little bit of sympathy for these people, because television is a real continuum and it eats people up, and it's a tough grind to make a television series.
That's why it's hard to find the writing talent. We hear constantly from people in the business that they're dying for new script writers, fresh ideas. It's you have a tendency to doubt what they would do with a fresh idea if they saw one, but they do put so much programming on the air for so long that there is a void there.
What's your favorite program on television, Rick?
Well, my favorite went off last year. It was The White Shadow. I reveled in that show. I thought it was fabulous from all standpoints. It was funny, it was dramatic, it had good acting.
Why did it go off?
Well, CBS continually explained that they gave it a good chance, and I guess they did. Its ratings were not particularly good in any of the time slots that they gave it, but it wasn't really particularly bad either. For instance, NBC certainly has gone a lot longer with Hill Street Blues with its ratings. CBS had a moderately successful show on their hands with White Shadow, and they just basically tossed it out.
I think it went off partly because it was, I mean, all along was designed to be a show with urban appeal. It was a program about problems, and often ghetto problems. There were a lot of black faces in the program, and you know, the truth is that there are a lot of people who don't want to be confronted with problems, and there probably are a lot of people who just as soon not watch a show in which a lot of black actors are performing.
John, what's your favorite?
Sad as that
What's
is.
your favorite show on TV?
Hill Street Blues.
Do you have much hope that it's going to make it?
Yeah, I have a lot of hope it's going to make it. It did pretty well first time out of the gate this year.
Have That's Incredible and Real People run the course? I saw they finished pretty in the second half of the ratings last week.
The shows themselves might. That probably has as much to do with Fran Tarkenton and John Davidson as the show itself. But I think that style of programming is probably going to be here to stay in one form or another.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I think those programs are going to be around for a while. Another thing about those shows is that they're relatively cheap to make.
One final question for each of you. You going to go home and watch television tonight, John?
Well, if I can make it home by 9, I can watch Hill Street.
And you?
Yeah, I've got a column plan on Hill Street for tomorrow, so I have to watch it.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks a lot, John.
Sure.
That's easy for them to say. They're not high-powered network executives like me. Well, let them besmirch my character. I'm upheld by the single principle that has guided me all my life. Professor? Just give the public what it wants. Just give the public what it wants. Don't try to put up a fight. The customer is always right. Just give the public what it wants. The teenage mind is where we aim. That's why the shows are all the same. The secret word is ratings, and we all play the game. Sexy scenes are all the fashion. Drugs and guns and playful passion. The more you throw the trash in, you cash in. I'll give the public what it wants. I'll give the public what it wants. If it takes a virile stud, wrestling pythons in the mud, to get the folks to view it, I'll do it. Cater to the public wishes. You can sell them broken dishes, sell them breath mints for their cars, sell them lakefront lots on Mars. Whee! Just give the public what it wants. That's the most profitable thing I ever heard. Just give the public what it wants. Hooray, hooray, hooray.
Philosophy by Tom Haig, Aesthetics by Joanne Ferris, and the $100 reward from the Duck, wherever he is. One of the best runs that a cab driver can hope for is from the airport to downtown Minneapolis. It can cost a rider $15 or more. But money is tight, not as many people are flying in the aftermath of the controller strike, and the cab business is hurting. Minneapolis is the only big city in the country besides Honolulu that won't allow cab companies to lease their cabs to drivers. And as a result, the biggest company in Minneapolis, Yellow Cab, is pulling out. The drivers are trying to raise money to buy the company and turn it into a co-op to keep their jobs, improve service, and make a profit. That's what drivers in Denver are doing. One reason that some drivers don't like leasing is that the cost of workmen's compensation insurance and other benefits would fall on them. Economic stories are too often abstract, so when we can, we like to tell you a story by letting you walk in someone else's shoes. In this case, I think producer Deanna Camille has done a superb job of letting you ride in someone else's seat.
Let's say you've been driving a cab in Minneapolis for 5 years. And let's say that for most of that time, the city's looked pretty good to you. But recently, well, you have to admit, the picture doesn't look good at all. Downtown cab stands, which you used to whiz through, now keep you waiting, sometimes over an hour. And then there's the airport. The cab lines there look more like a parking lot at a Rolling Stones concert. You glance down the line reserved for Minneapolis cabs and you could just about give up. There's Blue and White, the city's second largest company, and it's been losing money steadily for 5 years. And then Yellow Cab, the largest in the state. It recently announced plans to close down, although employees are trying to buy it back as a co-op. Maybe the industry has had it. That would be a reasonable deduction. So what do? Do you sell your cab license and go back to your PhD in sociology? No. Do you go back to the Marines? No. Instead, you get 2 other guys, you buy 2 cabs, and you start Minneapolis's newest and smallest cab company. That's what you'd do anyway if you were Larry Williams and you loved driving a cab in this town.
Today is a big territory that you roam around in, you know, and you roam around in it for 10 hours, and it has its ups and downs, but at the end of, at the end of the 10 hours, it was your day.
Williams is an ex-Marine and former graduate student who found he had more fun in the cab business than he did in academia. He also helped form the Guild of Taxi Drivers in 1975, which now represents most Minneapolis drivers. He may seem an untypical cab driver, but in the cab business, you soon learn that no one is typical.
Everybody is in between situations when they're driving cabs. Sometimes they're in between for like 20 or 25 years, but...
Al Milstein is president of the Guild of Taxi Drivers and helped negotiate a recent contract at Blue and White, where he's been driving for 7 years. Jimmy Harris, also with Blue and White, is a driver of 30 years who started part-time to supplement a former business. The newest driver here, Ann Wolf, has driven full-time since losing her community worker job in the recent cutbacks to social programs. And Steve Strong makes more money driving than he did selling insurance. Both he and Ann work for Yellow Cab and are involved in forming the co-op there. All these drivers share a concern for their industry's future, an industry where the average driver makes $250 a week, works 10-hour days and 6-day weeks, an industry which can feed some, but not all.
Well, I wouldn't say that I have a portfolio of stocks and bonds and a house on the lake, but I do make a fair piece of change.
I make it because I work a lot of hours, a lot of days, and also help my wife.
My last job, which was in human services, I do make about the same as I did, but I'm working 10, 12 hours a day, whereas I only worked 8 then.
Yeah, it is, the pay is really low. It is real grinding hours, but it...
it's better than working for wages.
It's better, yeah, it's better than working for a living, I guess.
No, I mean,
I was north once, and there was 7 cabs sitting there. Jesus. So it doesn't looks like a blue Monday, really, Larry.
I think it's time to go to the airport. There ain't nothing down here.
Well, I don't know. I'm second up here, and if I don't get anything if I don't get anything decent out of here right now, that's where I'm going.
The Catholic Youth Center.
Are you in with a convention?
Well, it's a workshop.
What kind of workshop?
Johnson Institute.
Oh, the Johnson Institute, the alcohol people.
95 cents, you know, and it's just like, you know...
Is it clicking again?
Yeah, really. Can't you put it on slow, you know?
They're laughing now, but they also agree the latest rate hike has hurt business, even though taxi fares have risen less than other commodities. The solutions vary from the co-op's desire for new taxi services, like ride-sharing, all the way to government subsidies, since taxis are part of mass transit. But whatever, one thing is for sure. Cabs are tied to the life of the city.
The dome's coming. I think that's going to bring us a lot of business.
Well, somehow I see that as like a shake of the dice. The city's saying, we're going to build all this stuff and we're going to roll a 7. And then, you know, because you also build all these buildings, city center, the dome and everything. And what if they don't get built up? Monday morning, there really isn't anything you can do right, you know. It's a luck operation. Like today is a real bummer, you know, been out an hour and a half, 2 hours, and got a $2.35 fare.
So why isn't business good anymore?
Nobody has money to ride cabs. The welfare people quit riding. Work people quit riding. Air traffic's down. Bus traffic's down.
Okay, I mean, is business good, bad, or terrible?
It's terrible. If it, you know, if it gets any worse, we're not going to survive.
It's possible to sit here 4 or 5 hours right now even. We're all sitting around. I've been here since, what, about 7:45. It's 9:30. I'm second up in a tough line, a red line, which is a St. Paul suburban line. I may sit here 3 more hours. I don't know.
Somebody was telling me about a new mall, shopping mall. It's just incredible. It's old warehouses or something. And
Yeah.
Where is that?
About 2 blocks from where you're at.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Good.
Butler Square. You've got to see that. What it is an old warehouse, and they took the center part out.
Our ability to talk to people and deal with people affects our income.
Exactly.
If we sit in stony silence and act uncomfortable to be around, we're not going to get the tips we need to live on, and that is part of our income.
I guess one thing that I will do, I will attempt to start a conversation if I pick somebody up at the airport, and where are you flying from? And he says, you know, Cincinnati or something. He says, geez, you know, how do you like Cincinnati? And they say, you know, what's it to you? Well, never mind.
5 years ago, when business was really good, we were practically mute, and we used to stutter a lot. The last couple of years, we've had a lot of practice talking.
A bit earlier, David, you mentioned the advertising.
You know, when people get old, the past gets much larger than the future. You see that? Most of their life is back there, and there's a little bit of it ahead, so they dwell a whole lot more on what was back there. You know, when you're driving cab, a day is like that. You know, you get around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, most of the day's back there. You've done what you're going to do. There's just a little shot ahead, you know. And the mind begins to go back over the things that happened. I was at the bus station. I should have been over at the Hyatt, or, you know, a good thing I went directly down to the Radisson this morning because a guy popped out and went to the airport. Maybe it was a good day, maybe it was a bad day. But you never know until the whole day is over what it's going to be like.
So what do you think lies in your future as a cab driver?
Well, I'm one of the people I was talking about that's been around for a long time, and I'm committed to it. I'm going to do it as long as I can.
How long do you think you can do it?
I'm going to make it through this year. No. And I'm going to make it through next year, too.
Next Wednesday on Channel 2, you're going to have a chance to see an exquisite documentary shot in the Grand Tetons by Jim Klobuchar and a crew from Channel 2 this past summer, and the warmth of a group of climbers and their guide who's now in his 70s who climbed the mountain for the last time. And on Tuesday on Night Times Magazine, Jim Klobuchar is going to come in here and talk about it and give us a little sample in advance, and exquisite is the word for it. I hope you'll join us. Good night.
Tomorrow at 7, The Bottom Line examines the news that affects Minnesota.